that there are many challenges for a mentor also. And these are the things that we need to look into, and how to go about, and how to look at all these opportunities where we can guide a company or a startup on how to look at a different manner to the approach. So I don't have many slides. I just have just basic slides so that you can get the main topic, and then we're going to be discussing. And we can use it as a little bit interactive, so the panelists can put the messages in the chat box, and I'll be happy to make it a little more interactive. So when we talk about challenges when it comes to opportunities and all that, we can see that as a mentor, first of all, we have to understand how to mentor a global business. Now, when you're doing something locally or even regionally or nationally, you're within the same country, the same set of rules apply, the same set of laws apply. And we are finding it that it is a very homogeneous kind of approach when we are mentoring any startup. And with the onset of GST, even the taxation system is pretty much rationalized. And irrespective of where you are, your same taxation is applicable throughout the country. So these are the things that are already very streamlined. So mentoring within the national boundaries of India is not that difficult when it comes to an holistic approach. Now we are talking about different types of challenges. So what are the challenges of a global business? So a mentor has to first understand the challenges. Only then he can help solve or support or mentor a startup in a global opportunity scenario. So, we see that as you can see on the screen, I'll keep this for a few minutes if you can see that. The currency management, when you're talking about cross-border things, however small business you might be, you will be having currency issues. The moment you talk about being global, what is involved is imports and exports of either product or a service. Nowadays, imports and export is not only about products; it's also about services. IT industry, service as a service, business as a service. These are the things also that have become very prominent nowadays. So these are the issues that we need to look at when you're talking about a global business. So currency management is one of the biggest issues, because at the end of the day, it comes down to profitability, it comes down to money, it comes down to your turnover, and it comes down to why you are doing a particular business. Money has to flow. So you have to understand the global forex scenario. What are the products that are available? What are the services for currency management that are available? And what are the currencies that are available? Also, the biggest challenge in a currency management scenario is the global economic situation that is happening. If we talk about very recently, the situation that has come out of the Russia conflict, we find that if you were doing business in Eastern Europe or Scandinavia, that got majorly disrupted. If you were working with Russia, that has got all the more disrupted because you can't deal in dollars anymore. So if you have a business that you are mentoring on a global level, let it be any kind of a global management, if you were dealing with Russia, dollars are out of the question. So what is the next best option? Euros. Euros also is not that easy anymore. Government of India has come up with new scenarios where you can deal in Indian rupees. I think just yesterday or day before yesterday, the rupee management system between India and Russia, or for any exports and imports, has been notified by the Reserve Bank of India. So these are the things that you have to be aware as a mentor. So these are the things when you have to know it yourself, and only then you can guide your mentee. So currency management plays a major role, and you have to anticipate. So there are certain currency cycles also. See, you are not a forex manager, so you don't need to go into too much details as a mentor, but you have to know what it is so that you tell the mentee or the startup company that these are the factors that you should know. So you might either directly connect them to a consultant that is into this kind of a sector where they can take up their services or their management, or you can study it up yourself and you can take it up. So currency management, forex management, these are the issues that are one of the major factors and challenges for a global business or a global startup. The second thing that is one of the largest is people management. Well, when you're doing cross-border things, it is not possible for you yourself or your company or the top leadership of the company, and especially a startup, to travel across 5, 6 countries every day, every week, every month, every year to grow your business. So, in the traditional days, we used to have things where we used to talk about the exports. Talking about some basic examples. So when you are talking about exports, what happens is you used to take part in an exhibition, you used to get an order, come back home, an LC used to be issued or an advance used to come, you produce your product, you ship it out, you get your money, cycle. Instagram. So these are the things that have completely changed, has completely disrupted how you do business anymore. So these new disruptions brought in new challenges for people management. So there are some countries where you wanted to grow, you want to set up an office, you want to start up. Maybe initially you would go there, set it up yourself. But if you have to grow in that particular territory, what happens? Well, what happens is you have to have people there to manage your business. As a owner of a business or as a promoter of a business, there is a limit to which you can do everything yourself. Yes, you are good at it. You might be the best at it, but your time and effort than managing people at a foreign destination. So this is the biggest challenge that people face, is finding the right people to support your team internationally. This has its own set of challenges. The qualifications, whether the qualifications that you want are available in that country or not, whether the educational qualification that country is expert in helps your business or not, and third and most important, whether that person understands your business or not. That is the biggest problem that happens when you're talking about cross border. So this is when it comes to people management. Now, of course, goes without saying that language is one of the biggest border barriers in some of the countries. So these are the challenges when it comes to people management. So now you're sorted out with, okay, as a mentor, you know what is a currency management. You're supposed to guide somebody or as a startup that, okay, you need to look at currency risk, you need to look at currency options, how to trade, how to market. This is one step. How to get people. You're supposed to guide your startup that, find the right people in the target country. It is very different from finding people in your own country. You might have referrals, you might have HR agencies, so which you can sit across the table and you can discuss. But when you're talking about cross border, you have to understand their point of view, their scope, their growth that they're looking for, and then talk about their language and their priorities. So this is what is coming as people management when it comes to a global business or a global startup. Next, what we're talking about is product selection. Now, product selection, how do you as a mentor guide? See, you cannot be a guide for everything. You cannot be a specialist for everything, but you can be a mentor for initiating or expanding the business globally for this particular startup that you might be mentoring. You might know that this particular service or product has great scope in at least 5 countries, 10 countries. And you have to tell your mentee that these are the products that you can take abroad and you can grow. And then comes your currency, people, product, language, culture, other factors. So as a mentor, your help is needed in telling a startup that, yes, you are very good in Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, or any other city that you might be in. You might be down to a niche product, which is sells maybe in your locality only. But maybe this product or a service has scope throughout the world. What does an investor look for in a startup? Well, of course, it's profitability and replicability. This is one of the biggest things that today an investor is looking for. Replicability of your business, which will help it grow. So when we are mentoring a startup, These are the things. Replicability is definitely something that you have to look for in the startup. That comes down to your product. So your startup or your company or your business might have 10, 15, 20, 100 products, but not every product might sell everywhere. This is something that you have to understand first, and you have to explain it to the other person, to the startup, to the company, to the person you are mentoring, that everything does not go everywhere. So it comes down to product selection. Let's talk about something basic as achar papad. Every Indian knows what an achar papad is, but suddenly you decide to sell it in Norway. You have to know whether it will sell in Norway or not is the first thing. An achar papad, when you do your homework, these are just examples. I mean, there can be a service, it can be a product, it can be a car, it can be a website development company, it can be a software development company, it can be anything. You have to see what is the target market for this product. And this is not your job. Your job is to ensure that the mentee or the company thinks about this. A mentor's role should be to guide, not to give it as a platter in the hand and say, okay, do this. Then it becomes like a dictation, which you may or may not have an expertise about. So you have to ensure that as a mentor, you guide the company, you guide the startup in helping them in this process from your experience, your connections, and your past learnings that you might have had. That comes down to product selection. So we were talking about achar papad, for example. If you want to sell it in Norway, well, you need an Indian diaspora first. Do you have that much to sell that kind of volumes in that particular country? Maybe not. Which is the next best country to grow this in, where you have a huge Indian population, where, for example, Europe, USA, Malaysia, where the Indian connect is there, where the Indian people are there, where your product has a liking. Then it will come down to a different level of product specification, where it might be different from place to place. For example, the taste of an achar might be sweet in Europe and spicy in Malaysia. That's a second thing. But when it comes to product selection, for example, a software, you have to see that a software is relevant in that particular country or not. So this is what you have to make your company and the person at the other end, your mentee, your startup, understand that product selection is very important and everything cannot be sold everywhere. The next topic that we are going to talk about is product pricing. Well, product pricing, it seems like a very simple thing. We feel that, oh, what is there? You just take a cost price, you add your profit, and end of story, and you sell it. Done. But it's not that simple. We have to understand that product pricing in cross-border is very different. So you have to have a lot of contingencies. So as a mentor, you have to know just the broad topics, and of course you can study in detail and become an expert in any of these topics, but you have to understand what is most important. When you talk about a global business, you have to have, let me put it this way, you have to be jack of all trades when it comes to a global business. You need not be the master of one or even some, but you should have the basic knowledge of all these things. And then you tell the startup that these are the sectors that you need to look into, and these are the sectors that you need to approach for a better understanding of your business in a foreign land. Product pricing we were talking about. So let's say it's very simple. You get it in home, the raw material price X, you add a Y, and you have an XY, and you are selling it. But the moment you talk about cross-border, there are issues like cost of transportation, the cost of currency fluctuation, the cost of insurance of your product in transit, the cost of insurance of the product when it lands, the cost of follow-up of the shipment, pre-shipment and post-shipment. I have seen footwear exporters losing money just because they did not calculate the cost of going there and coming back if their payments do not come. So, for example, if you have an order of 15 lakh rupees and you have made 1 lakh rupees in that as a profit, But if you have to go twice from India to London and come back, your profit is gone. So these are the issues in pricing that you're supposed to load onto your product in terms of a percentage. Every deal might not need that, but small drops make an ocean. Always remember that. So product pricing is one of the most important thing when it comes to cross-border. Insurances, marine insurance, transit insurance, cost of your telephone calls abroad. Thankfully, it's not so much thanks to WhatsApp and other online calling facilities, but you might want to go there. In today's times, it's not that easy to travel, and COVID has seen major disruptions. So these are the things that unplanned contingencies should have a small component in your product pricing when you're dealing across barriers. So these are the things that you're supposed to look into. And you need not be an expert in all this. You need to just mention that, okay, when you're pricing your product, you're supposed to consider these factors and add it onto it. For example, freight component has become so high in some of the places and countries, the cost of transport is much more than the cost of your product also. So how do you justify these? So these are the things that you're supposed to have it at the back of your mind and tell your startup that when you're thinking about cross-border deals, cross-border sales, cross-border purchases, these are the broad factors as a mentor that you're supposed to inform them and tell them that, okay, look at all these products. You have a proper product selection, you have a product pricing, you have people that can manage, and you have a currency management expert that can assist you when needed. The simplest terms, if I say that your existing banker can be your best currency manager. Always go to them, approach them and tell them that you speak to your manager, especially the nationalized banks, they guide you very well. Go to their foreign exchange department, ask them the currency cycles. So there are certain months where the foreign currency is at a high, there are certain months which are at a low. Study this broadly, plan it accordingly so that you can make money in the currency management also. See, that's not your core business, but that can ensure that you lose a lot of money. So at least you should not lose. A gain is definitely welcome. So product selection, product pricing, people management, currency management. Now, once you have done with all this, now comes the time to actually take your product, your company, your startup abroad. What are the ways to do that? Well, go there, participate in exhibitions, online events, online activities, cold mails. These are the basic things that everybody does. But do approach a lot of trade unions, associations across barriers in those target countries. Showcase your profile. Tell them that, okay, this is what we are looking at. We want to have a partner in that particular country. Can you help us? Can you support us? That does make a lot of difference. So approach Chamber of Commerce in the target destination. Always you might find that somebody or the other might be interested in your product or service. So utilize all these facilities that are available. After all, that's what the organizations are there for. They're supposed to help your business grow. And that's what is needed. The moment you approach them, keep a follow-up, speak to them. Everything might not result in a positive outcome. Always remember that. But don't get demoralized. We forget one basic thing. If I ask somebody, how many countries are there in the world where you can export? I mean, people can just use the chat box. I would like to see how many countries or does an average person export to? I mean, if you can just put it in the chat box, some numbers. I'll wait for about 5 to 7 seconds. How many countries does your product, your mentor, it has a target, or generally people export to or import from? How many countries? Anyone?
Yes, anyone would like to answer? You can raise your hand so that I can unmute.
Or you can put it in the chat box also. Yeah, 2 hands.
Yes. Yeah.
The chat box is disabled.
Okay, so you can use your voice. We can hear you.
So it can
Yes.
be 5 to 6 countries that can be targeted initially.
Right, that's true. So what happens is, this is the standard practice. Everybody says 5 to 7 countries, 5 to 7 countries. But you have to understand, everybody runs after US or a UK or France, Germany, Italy. I mean, 5, 6. You have to understand there are 200 plus countries in the world. Every country is buying a product or a service. It may or may not be what you might be selling, or your startup might be selling, or the company that you're mentoring might be selling or buying from. But it is worth evaluating that there are 200 countries. So you have to explain to your startup or your mentee that, okay, for example, if you're selling in a small location of Mumbai or Delhi, there is no harm in looking after another option, looking after another country whose population might be similar to an Indian city, but which can give you a much higher margin to your product. And that also means that your product or service is replicable. So these are the things that you need to understand, that there are 200 countries. When you want to have a global business, you have to look beyond the 5 or 7 and take a globe. Nowadays, Google Maps is there, or any other maps is there. Just open up and see. Go to a particular country, select a country, do it one at a time. You have to, as a mentor, you have to guide them that don't open the Pandora's box. Don't put your hand into everything at the same time. As a mentor, your guidance should be select 1, 2, 3 countries, look at the possibilities of your product in these countries, then go down to that level, understand which cities or which towns that product or service can do that. Then go to that particular chamber or a government, local government level, where do they have any support for expanding your business in your country or in their country. And this is your role as a mentor. These are the things that you're supposed to do. So that makes your holistic approach to going global for a startup or a business. The next barrier, now that you've decided what to do, where to go, what your product is, what your pricing is, how you manage to have a basic 1 or 2 people that is going to help you, have a background of the currency situation, that okay, it fluctuates, it goes up, it goes down, you plan for the contingencies. Next, what? Language barriers. Now, language barrier, the term itself is something that today I despise. Language is not a barrier today. The simplest is, there are so many devices available. You talk into that, it translates to more than 50, 100 languages. It's as simple as that. You select a language, you talk into it, it translates. These are the devices that are easily available for 5,000-7,000 rupees. Anybody can buy it. That is a device. Every phone, Android phone, has a Google Translate option. You can use that to translate into any language across the world. Utilize these tools for growing your business.
Hello. So we are not able to hear your voice. Can anyone hear you? Hello. Oh, you got to disconnect. Okay, so sorry, joining got disconnected. Maybe there is some network issue.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Sorry, I got disconnected. Problems of a technology connected world.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Okay. So I'll continue from where I left off.
Yes.
Uh, is the audio video okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So coming back to the challenges that we were talking about, well, the language barrier. So we by default assume that the other person understands English. I mean, not going very far away, staying even within the country. Sometimes we have, if you go down south, language becomes a problem in the interior. Sometimes when we go to the northeast, language becomes a problem. So of course, the language will be a problem that when you go across the world, maybe to South America, maybe to Iran, maybe to Africa, many other countries, Southeast Asia, but I cannot call it a barrier in today's times. So you have a lot of tools. I was giving the example of Google Translate. I was giving the example of a lot of other issues that are there. So these are the things that we need to look at. How do you overcome these challenges, which we called as a language barrier? Well, of course, when you look at it, you have to mention to your mentee, to your startup, that when you approach a target country, know what is the default languages that is spoken. Many countries in the world speak Spanish, many speak Portuguese, many speak Russian, many speak French. I mean, even in Africa, you have nearly or francophone countries, what you call. There are Spanish-speaking countries. Of course, English-speaking countries are there, which is very proficient when it comes to India. But these are the things that we have to understand, that language, when you're approaching a francophone countries, you have an introductory email written first in English, and at the bottom you say the same thing you can translate into French and write down, or Spanish, whichever your target country might be. So when you're talking about taking a startup global or multinational, you are supposed to explain to him that look at the language of the target country. The language should be understood. You have to make yourself acceptable. See, if you don't do that, nobody is going to take you on a gunpoint and shoot you. But the point is that shows your willingness to be open, your willingness to go that extra mile and take yourself, your product, your service, your mentee to the next level and have a better edge as compared to others. So that is why understand the language of the target country, go through that, have brief introductions in those languages. In addition to that, make your website compatible to those languages. If that is your target country, it becomes very simple. So, you see generally you have like French, Spanish, English. So that is the thing that you have. These are the things that you need to understand when it comes to language barrier, as we may call it. The next challenge that you feel, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So the cultural barriers. So we've talked about currency management, people management, selecting your product, pricing your product for international markets, how you can handle the language barriers. So these are the basic things that comes to when you're talking about taking. See, as a mentor, I repeat again, this thing I'm repeating again and again. As a mentor, your role is to have a holistic view and an overview of all these topics to explain to your mentee or the startup that these are the things that you should know. But you need not be an expert in all of these. It's the role of that company, that startup, that they do their homework and you have to make them do it, not do it for them. As a mentor, we forget that and we will try to do this. Oh, we will do this and we will do this and we will do this and we will find this out and we will let you know. Your role as a mentor is as a guide to ensure that they are on the right path, to keep the path straight, to ensure that they are walking that path. That is the role of a mentor. You're not supposed to do everything for them. So that is what you need to understand. Coming down to the cultural barriers. Now, I'll give you an example. For example, if you're growing, there's a gaming company, huge gaming company. There's a startup. They want to go abroad. They want to go to Japan. But you have to understand one thing: gaming, animation has been in Japan since eternity. If you want to go there, you have to first understand what Japanese culture is all about. What is it that they value? What is their family system? What is their understanding when it comes to portraying things on the screen, which may be digital, which may be physical? It can be a product. There are some products that might offend a particular country. There are some services that might not be acceptable in a particular country. So this is something which is called as a cultural barrier. See, culture is a huge challenge for any startup or even an MNC for that matter when you are going cross-border. I'll give a very basic example. If somebody is coming to India to set up their shop, to sell their product, their service, and they go ranting against our culture about, oh, this is mythology and this was never there, and you're talking that this does not exist, or they portray people or things that we value with our culture in a different look altogether, that backfires. Similarly, when your mentee, your startup, your company goes to the other country, which may be Southeast Asia, South America, North America, anywhere. If we leave aside North America, which is a multicultural society, we talk about Southeast Asia, we talk about South America, we talk about Africa, they have a very strong cultural system in place, which has been there since centuries. These are the civilizations that have been there since eternity. So we have to try and at least do basic homework on the target country's culture system, family system, value system. And knowing what to do is one thing, but not knowing what to do is a completely different thing altogether. So you should know what not to do rather than knowing what to do, if you know what I'm trying to say. So it is better not to commit a mistake knowingly or unknowingly when it comes to cultural ethics and cultural situations in your target country. So these are the things that you need to understand. Then going back to business ethics, there are some countries in Middle East, when you go for a negotiation for a product, you want to sell your product or service, you go and you sit there and suddenly the other person walks out, end of the meeting. You don't even know what happened, but you've gone there, you just sat, and the person just walks out, and the PA comes and says, sir has said we cannot deal with you. What happened? You suddenly realize that something happened, but you don't know what happened. So these are the things that you have to understand. That's when there is the fine line between culture, business, and your ethics. There are some countries and cultures where you cannot sit with your legs crossed in front of them. So the moment you went and you sat there, you crossed your legs, end of story. So these are the things that you're supposed to know, that what is the business culture. For example, if you go to Japan, I'll give it just a random example. You go, you sit down on your knees, you sit comfortably. You are supposed to be very clean, organized, keep your own bedding, keep your own footwear in place, footwear outside. Lot of these, and they are not cultural issues, they are business ethics. Can you believe that? So there is a fine line between culture and business in some of the countries. There are some countries where business ethics clearly means coming on time. 9 a.m. meeting, you have to be there 9 a.m. That's it. So these are the things you have to understand, how you have to know these things, and you have to tell your company or your mentee how to go about these challenges of a global business. So we spoke about currency management, people management, product selection, pricing your product correct, understanding the language that a country has, the cultural barriers, the business systems in place. These are the general things that you have to explain to any business that plans to go global. Now, a little bit more. When you come to language, for example, like I mentioned, language is very simple. But what is the thing that you have to understand when it comes to language? you have to understand that you may or may not understand the other person completely. Simplest way is to hire a language expert of the target country. It's not that expensive. It helps and it pays back to have somebody who can understand the other person's language. Use translators. Of course, for initial conversations, you can have Google Translate and you can have these handheld devices as translators. But at a later stage, when you employ locally, ensure that they know the local language very well. This is one of the utmost importance when you decide to stay in a territory and expand in their territory and grow. So it is not always going to be you go there, you export your product and you come back and end of story. It doesn't happen anymore like that. It is a long-term approach. You want to grow there, you want to expand. And as a mentor, you have to understand and you have to tell them there is a fine line. You start small, you grow big, and you grow bigger, and then you plateau. So you have to understand that when you are stagnating or beginning, it's fine. But the moment you want an exponential growth in a country that is not an English native speaking language, you are supposed to have some local people that help you with the language, the culture, and the business ethics. So that is one of the most important things. Culturally also, the moment you expand in a particular territory and you grow, your home business, I'll give the classic example of TCS. It is there in, I think, nearly 100 countries. But they go there, they adapt, they send the trained team from India, they go there, they train the local people, they expand, they become a local company. They don't stay like an Indian company anymore. Their business ethics becomes the target country's business ethics. Their parent company is Indian, but they adapt locally, they grow locally, they understand the local requirements, and they grow according to that. So the moment you go and you grow, you understand that local adaptability has to be understood by your startup, by your company, by your mentee. And as a mentor, your role should be to tell them that this should be your line of action. This is what you should do. And as a guide, you should help them achieve their goals. These are the things that we have to understand when it comes to language issues, culture issues, and business ethics. There are certain other things which I would like to just highlight and fleet upon so that you get an idea of the other, some of the major points that come across. I'll just share one slide. Okay, can you see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So the role of a mentor in supporting a global business. Now, this is something that you have to by heart. And you have to tell your company that just understand this slide very well. As a mentor, you have to ensure that you understand free trade agreements. What a basic free trade agreement is, which region has which kind of free trade agreements. You don't need to go into the details. That is the role for the company. But as a mentor, you should be able to tell your startup or a company that the understand free trade agreements in your target countries. Sometimes you go, for example, to Singapore and you realize Singapore is a part of the ASEAN and it gives you access to 10 countries with the same setup. So this is something that you have to explain to them, that when you are adapting to Singapore, also adapt to the 10 countries that come along with that as a single package deal. Legal obstacles. You have to ensure that legal challenges need to be taken care of. You may or may not need that, but the moment you decide to set up in a particular country, guide your company or a startup to tell them to have a standby legal team, part-time, full-time, anything, so that in case of requirement, they are there to have your back. It can be for legalities, agreements, anything. In case of any issues that come with company formations and etc. So legal teams are very important when you're doing cross-border dealings. Have one on standby, have one empaneled. It always helps. and publicize that the moment you are going to a particular country. For example, you're sitting in Singapore negotiating a deal. Tell them that yes, we have a legal team that is taking care of our. They know you are serious. They know you have done your homework. They know that the company has come to do something. Company formation. The moment you decide to form a company, there are, just like in India, we have private limited, one-person company, proprietorship, partnership. Same exists across the world. So you have to mentor. You need not start with a listed company right from day one. Maybe you can start with a one-person company. You can start with a small organization with a capital of $1, €1, or whatever currency that might be. Start small whenever you do things. It always helps. Take a company formation that is having minimum legal requirements, minimum compliance requirements, and minimum obstacles. So select, you can always grow, but the moment you increase your compliance burden, increase your compliance cost, you are putting in more than you're getting for a future that you have not seen. So start small, guide your companies or your mentees that when you are expanding overseas, start small. Marketing, one of the most important things. You have to understand that when you're marketing your product or service in a particular country, what is the need of that country? That is something that you have to understand. This is what you're supposed to look forward. This is what you're supposed to showcase. This is what you're supposed to require in the target country. So marketing team has to be in place, and you have to inform that as a mentor that yes, you are very good at your work in India, but maybe when you're going to the US, you have a different marketing strategy. Time to market. Now, this is the something that most companies misjudge. So what happens is the moment you have a product in hand, you want to sell it to US, oh, it'll reach there in the 1 week's time. But you see that, okay, 1 week by air, maybe, maybe not. There's custom clearances at both ends. There's custom clearances in India, custom clearances in target destination. When it comes to products, when it comes to services, yes, it can be shipped off or login given, password given, but then comes the teething troubles when you have login issues, when you have software issues, when you have glitches, when you have network issues. And that is how you have to understand that you decided to deploy a product or a service in one time frame and you're not able to do that. This is something that you have to take care of. When you're talking about product, well, I already mentioned custom clearance, there's freight times, there's time that it takes from warehouse to warehouse, from there to retail. These are the timelines that you have to understand. Packaging and presentation. Every country has a different packaging rule and regulation for products. It can be IT, it can be software, it can be hardware. I mean, many countries, software is sold as a product on shelves. I mean, you find these Google cards available, and these are the things that are available. So understand the packing and presentation and representation of your product or service in the foreign market. This is one of the most important things. Quality assessment. You have to assess your own quality. What might be good quality in India might be inferior in Germany. Germany has one of the most stringent requirements for quality. So when you decide a target market, do the quality assessment for that quality. You might be the best in India, but you may not be the top 10 also in Germany, for example. So you have to understand quality assessment. Pricing strategies we already discussed in detail. But yes, competition analysis is something that you have to tell as a mentor. You have to ensure that the company does their SWOT analysis. Your competition analysis has to be complete. The pricing of the competitor, the settings, displays, the shells, the product, the language. For example, if you're selling a software, the language that they are doing it in the particular country. These are the things that you need to take care of. So that is something that you need to tell them as a mentor. You have to look forward. So these are, let me summarize it once again. And so you have an idea. Well, right from the beginning, challenges of a global business is currency management, people management, product selection, pricing of the product, language barriers, cultural barriers, business ethics, and then we come down to things that are free trade agreements. As a mentor, you're supposed to know these. As a mentor, you're supposed to understand the legal challenges, the company formations, the marketing, time to market, packaging and presentation of the product or service, quality assessment strategies, pricing strategies, and competition analysis. These are the things that you're supposed to know as a mentor so that you can guide your startup or your company accordingly. And with this, I would like to conclude today's session for the mentors. And I would like to thank BYST for having me here today as a speaker and to allow me to present the views on how to grow internationally, how to overcome the challenges and obstacles. And I'll just share the last screen, which has my contact details in case needed. That's where you can reach me. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your time. So now I'm requesting participants, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand so that I'll unmute you. Yes. I'm sure.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Priyanka, this is Sukanya here.
Yes, ma'am.
How are
Good
you?
evening, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Manpreet, it was a very, very insightful session. I had joined last 10 minutes and I was there and now and then. And I would like to ask one thing, how do you think, how do you assess MSMEs, global competitiveness when you compare Indian MSME in the global scenario?
Sukanya ji, this is a very good question. In fact, this is one question I love to answer. So you have to understand one thing. Everybody or a product or a service cannot be bought from large corporations. They have their own terms and conditions. They want everything in advance. They want huge quantities. So the world, in the entire world, I would say 80% of businesses, or maybe even 90% in some countries, are controlled by small and medium businesses. So if you have a small and medium business seller here, there is a small and medium business buyer at the other end. So there's a huge possibility that a small company will work majorly with a small company for the flexibility of operations, the understanding of payment terms, capabilities, where you can negotiate the quantities, the qualities, you can customize the product, as compared to a large company which will say, this is the product, this is the terms, take it or leave it. So for a small and medium company, the world is your market.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Manpreet. Thank you so much. Thank you, Priyanka.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Okay. Yes, so we'll go one by one because most of the participants, they have raised your hand. Yes. Mr. Sisir Sahu. Vinod Kulkarni.
हाँ नमस्ते सर।
नमस्ते जी।
नमस्ते सर। सर एक बात ये था कि मुझे जो आपका जो लास्ट कांटेक्ट नंबर वो है ना, वो इम्पोर्टेंट, वो शेयर करना चाहिए था, वो नहीं हुआ है, इसलिए
मैं डाल देता चैट बॉक्स में।
Yeah, sure, it's required, sir, because of I want to organize your session for our candidates. So new coming entrepreneurs are there also in our colleges. If our now today the exam is going on, after the examination we will conduct the sessions regarding the import and export and the company related.
Anytime.
Yeah, please kindly share it.
Okay. I've already put in the chat box, you can see.
Okay, sir. Okay. Yeah. But it's not, sir.
You can see?
No, sir.
You can just you can contact BYST. BYST shall give it to you. They have
okay, we'll share. Yes.
BYST has all the details. Priyanka ji, if you can share.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yes, sir. I'll share. Okay. So Ritesh Agrawal.
Hello. Am I audible?
Ji, sir.
Manpreet ji, good afternoon.
Very good afternoon, ji.
As you have said, like we have small and medium businesses in India. Similarly, we have the counterparts in other countries as well. So do you recommend any forum or any approach by means of which we can identify or reach to these small buyers or small business people?
Sir, there are multiple forums, like there are hundreds of chambers and associations and organizations in India. In many countries, these forums are government ones. For example, in India, we have ROC. So in many countries, I'll give the example of Ethiopia. Ethiopia has the Ethiopian Chamber of Commerce, and compulsorily every business has to register with them. So once you decide your target country, you can either approach these organizations and they will be happy to connect you, or you can do your homework in countries which is like India and has many organizations like US, UK, Europe. You can approach these organizations and ask them to connect you. You know, we in India, we just assume that हमने मेल भेज दिया तो हमारा काम हो गया, सामने वाले ने पढ़ लिया, बस अभी कल के कल ही 10 बायर की लिस्ट आ जाएगी. बट लाइफ अगर इतनी इजी होती तो आजकल सब करोड़पति बन गए होते. So you have to just after an email, एक phone करो उनको. You have to tell them कि भाई I have sent an email. This is my coordinate. This is my contact. And can you please reply to them? And always take a follow up after a few days time. हम लोग क्या सोचते हैं? We assume that अरे I have sent an email. I never got a reply. Now we send emails in the tens and thousands. I mean, similarly happens at the other end also. So they are also looking for serious people. They also don't want people just to keep sending random emails. So always have a multi-pronged approach. Send an email, make a follow-up phone call, send a follow-up email, and be persistent. मतलब एग्जाम में बचपन में हमारे को सिखाया जाता था ना, पेशेंस एंड परसिवरेंस कैन मूव माउंटेन्स. सेम गोस फॉर बिजनेस आल्सो.
Right, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, anyone would like to ask anything?
Hello.
हाँ जी
Yes.
सर.
Yeah, am I audible, sir? Hello.
हाँ जी सर. Can you be a
Yes,
little louder?
you are audible.
Okay. Yeah, sir, my name is Narayan. I am the deputy project head in Mentoring India. So actually, I was attending the full session. It was very informative and very useful in the day-to-day scenario. Thank you, sir. I have a question on behalf of the mentor. Sir, could you say what are the business started in India and now globally it is dominating? What are the business?
Sir, every business, in fact, I'll give you 2-3 major examples. One is the textile business, which Tirupur has become an expert. Yes, over a period of time, Bangladesh has taken over India, but India has been a major leader and still is in today's times. But it is just due to our, focus that has wavered. We have changed our businesses. We have not adapted to the times. So if you ask me what are the sectors, well, IT, software, spices, garments, footwear, we are in the top 5 in the world. But when you look at global trade percentage, India is not even 1% of the global trade. So imagine the possibilities that are there for Indian businesses. So possibilities are immense. And the sectors are also open. You take about anything, agriculture, footwear, clothes, garments, software, something as simple as furniture. I mean, you will find that Malaysia has become an expert in furniture just because they had rubber wool. Switzerland became an expert in chocolates. They don't have milk or cocoa for that matter, but they are the world's best in chocolates. So many such examples are there.
Actually, sir, the small businessman thinking, if I start my business in globally, I have to pay taxes or there is a lot of criteria and we have to pay something extra. Is it true, sir?
No. There is no such thing as like that. In fact, there are many small exporters in India who are exporting by courier or by post also. So nothing extra or anything is needed. But I would personally suggest you tie up with an exporter and you give him some extra percentage as a merchant exporter and let him export your product for a year or two until you get the experience. So, but we feel that, arey, wo hamara business leke chala jayega. But it is not his business, he's a merchant. Uske paas roz koi na koi naya aata hai. So, but your business is yours, you know the nitty-gritty. आपका बिजनेस कोई लेके नहीं जा सकता है, आपको खाली बट हाँ योर पेपर वर्क हैज टू बी टाइट, यू हैव टू एंश्योर दैट पेमेंट कम्स ऑन टाइम। तो ये सब चीजें हैं जो हमको देखना चाहिए। बट फॉर अ स्मॉल एक्सपोर्टर ऑलवेज स्टार्ट स्मॉल, देयर इज नथिंग टू स्टॉप यू, और कोई एक्स्ट्रा खर्चा नहीं लगता है, कुछ नहीं लगता है। पहले क्या होता था कि इवन इफ यू डिड नॉट हैव वैट रजिस्ट्रेशन यू कुड एक्सपोर्ट, अब वो नहीं है, अब आपको जीएसटी रजिस्ट्रेशन कंपलसरी है इफ यू वांट टू एक्सपोर्ट। सो वो एक एडिशनल कंप्लायंसेस आज आ गया है, बट दैट्स अबाउट इट, एडिशनली आपको कुछ नहीं चाहिए।
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
वेलकम।
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the update. So, yes, Sarayu, ma'am.
Good evening, sir.
गुड इवनिंग।
I'm audible, sir.
या वी कैन हियर।
I would to you. I have my travel agency business. Last 3 years, COVID situation is there, sir. But last 3 months, the business will open. But when we are talking about global business for international destination, tourists are not took the faith when they are coming to book the international packages. So I want to guidance how to communicate or how counselation going on for such a clientele.
Well, honestly speaking, as Indians, यशराज की पिक्चर देखी तो स्विट्जरलैंड में सब भाग गए।
हाँ,
तो दैट हैज बीन आवर हिस्ट्री, मतलब इंडियन टूरिज्म उसी पे डिपेंड करता है। बाली का देखा तो पूरा हिंदुस्तान बाली पहुंच गया।
yes.
But as a travel agent or a travel guide, I must say,
Yes,
the
yes.
world is very big. You have to
Yeah.
find new destinations and tell them कि भाई this is virgin country, this is virgin city, यहाँ पे आज तक कोई नहीं गया, यहाँ पे स्नो है, यहाँ पे माउंटेन्स है, यहाँ पे बीचेस हैं। वर्ल्ड में इतने अच्छे अच्छे बीचेस हैं which is very easy to reach, which are very tourist friendly, लेकिन हमको पता नहीं होता, इसलिए हम भी नहीं जाते, हम किसी को रेकमेंड भी नहीं करते। मतलब सेंट्रल अमेरिका की मैं अगर बात करूं तो मतलब कोस्टारिका और यू टॉक अबाउट डोमिनिकन रिपब्लिक, पूरा अमेरिका हॉलीडे मनाने सेंट्रल अमेरिका जाता है। इंडिया से कोई नहीं जाता है बिकॉज टिकट्स आर वेरी एक्सपेंसिव, सो इट इज नॉट इजी टू रीच। बट इट इज दैट वैल्यू क्लाइंट दैट कम्स टू यू ना। आप वैसा क्लाइंट ढूंढो जो आपके साथ 1500 रुपए का बार्गेन नहीं करे, जो अच्छी डेस्टिनेशन, उसको आप बोलो कि भाई भले तू 2 साल में एक बार जा, लेकिन ऐसा जा, लेकिन तू सारी जिंदगी लोगों को सुनाता रहे कि दिस इज व्हाट आई हैव डन एंड दिस इज व्हाट इज वेरी डिफरेंट। सो गिव हिम दैट विजन, एस्पिरेशन बोलते हैं ना जिसको।
हाँ 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 हाँ।
इंडियंस आर
तो
वेरी
हमने-
एस्पिरेशनल।
हाँ, ये डेमो लिया तो हमने एक डॉक्टर का ग्रुप 8 जनों का कारगिल डेस्टिनेशन के लिए भेजा और एक ग्रुप लेह लद्दाख कारगिल ऐसे भेजा। तो आप जो बोल रहे हैं एडवेंचरस के लिए डेयरिंग नहीं करते लोग इंडियन, तो इसी के लिए मैं अभी आपका फॉर्मूला फॉलो करके ट्राई करती हूँ।
जरूर जरूर। इनफैक्ट मैं आपको एक पर्सनल एग्जांपल बताता हूँ। मैं स्टेट का नाम नहीं लूंगा। मैं एक स्टेट में गया, वहां पे ना सड़क बन रही थी, काफी सालों से बन रही थी, मतलब 10-12 साल हो गए थे। एंड पीपल आर लाइक अरे कौन आएगा यहाँ पे, कुछ नहीं है, देयर इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू रीच, हम पहुंचेंगे कैसे, एक शहर से दूसरे शहर 4 घंटा लग रहा है, खाली 30 किलोमीटर का डिस्टेंस है। तो वो ट्रैवल एजेंट बेचारा सिर पकड़ के बैठा हुआ था कि मैं इसको अभी बेचूंगा कैसे डेस्टिनेशन को। स्टेट ने तो बुला लिया, तो भाई मैंने उसको बोला कि भाई इसको एडवेंचर टूरिज्म करके बेच, तेरा माल बिक जाएगा। एंड ट्रस्ट मी, ही टुक 2 delegations फॉर एडवेंचर टूरिज्म इन दीस प्लेसेस, और उसको रास्तों में कैंप वैम्प करवा के लेके गया। ही मेड गुड मनी इन दैट। सो इट इज जस्ट थिंकिंग आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स दैट मेक्स ऑल द डिफरेंस।
या और मैंने 29 ईयर से मैं टूरिज्म को पढ़ाती हूँ सर। मेरा खुद का भी 20 साल से ट्रैवल एजेंसी का बिजनेस है। मैं एस्कॉर्ट बोल के जाती हूँ, लेकिन मेरा खुद का भी एक्सपीरियंस यही है। देयर आर 29 स्टेट्स इन इंडिया, बट आई एम प्राउड ऑफ पंजाब। जब मैंने वो वाघा बॉर्डर पे जो जोर से नारा लगाया भारत माता की जय, तो ऐसे लग रहा था मैं जन्नत देख रही हूँ। आई एम वेरी प्राउड ऑफ
सही बात है, दैट इज अ डिफरेंट एक्सपीरियंस ऑलटुगेदर। सही बात,
ऐसे खून खोल गया था। तो ये मेरा
सही
खुद का
बात।
एक्सपीरियंस है। हाँ, और जब भी मैं मुझे आपकी जरूरत लगेगी तो आपका फोन कांटेक्ट सेव किया है मैंने, आपको कांटेक्ट करूंगी सर।
मोस्ट वेलकम, मोस्ट वेलकम जी, मोस्ट
थैंक यू
वेलकम।
Thank you, madam. So I think if there is no question. Anyone is having any questions, or else we will wind up the session here.
Madam, can you share the BYST number in Pune region?
Sorry, sir.
हेलो BYST का पुणे रीजन जो पास नंबर है वो शेयर हो सकता है क्या?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will share the number from Pune region. I am sharing in the chat box, sir.
Okay, 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 sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks to all the participants. Thank you for joining, and a big thank you to Manpreet Singh sir for conducting this webinar so nicely, and it was very informative and insightful. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you, BYST, once again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sukanya ji,
Thanks
for
to
having
all.
me part of BYST.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.